going to show you a method of processing fleece on just a simple hair comb. This was maybe $2. It's about 6 inches long or 15 centimeters, and the tines are 1 inch long or 2 centimeters. I think that a slightly larger hair comb might be better, but it doesn't really seem to matter. One thing that's probably important is that the tines are all evenly spaced. I think if it's one of the ones where it gets really fine at one end, you're going to have a hard time pulling the fleece off of that end. So one similar to this would probably be preferable. So we're just going to take our fleece. This is just some dyed Shetland. And if you've ever processed on hand combs before, you want to load it in a similar manner. So pick off some locks. If you haven't processed fleece before, you can probably find some good information just by looking into like how to hand comb things, because it is similar. So to start with, you just want to comb the locks. You just want to make sure it's opened up. If there's any snags on it, then it's just harder to pull it back off. It's fine that lots is staying on there. Doesn't really matter either way. In the same way as hand carding, you can also just do this as like a total jumble, and you will still get nice top. It just takes more processing, so sort of up to you. Crows fighting. And the method of, like the way that I have my hands is, I'm sort of holding the butt end of the lock here, and then pulling it. But you could probably hold your hands however is comfortable, and that would work just fine. So that's a pretty decent amount that I've loaded on. I could fit more, but I'm not gonna. Hang on. Now you can see, we wouldn't necessarily want to spin like this. Like, there's still some lock definition in there that would interfere. So what we're probably going to do is pull this off and then put it back on the combs, and then it might be good to go from there. So this is the same method of pulling off as with hand combs. So what I do is I hold the comb quite firmly in my hand, and then I grab the tip in my other hand and just sort of course it looks like, there we go. Just sort of shimmy and pull gently. We want it to be gentle because it'll just... Sorry, my camera setup is that I've just got my phone wedged in some willow sticks. It's really not working. Okay. So you just shimmy gently. And that works pretty well for me, but if that's not working, you could just try whatever. And if it just pulls off in short little clumps, you can still spin it like that. It's just not as nice. And you're always moving your grip up as you go, because otherwise it'll break. So this, I could have gotten a little bit more off. I should have really. This is combing waste, so we're going to remove that from the combs, just put it to the side. And this is, yeah, you can see it's not quite there yet. You don't really want texture in your comb top. I mean, it's fine if you have it. It'll just lead to textured yarn, so if you want a really smooth, consistent yarn, this needs to go again. So I would highly recommend keeping track of which end you're spinning from, because I find most breeds, like, or at least most fleeces, they'll spin better from the cut end or from the tip end, one or the other. With this, it's easy to tell because the red end is the tips. So I'm going to load it with the cut end first, again. And so all I'm doing is just sort of mounting the hair there and then pull. So it's easier to reprocess it. It goes on a lot faster. One of the advantages of this little hand comb thing, which I've been calling it a palm comb to differentiate, is that aside from only being $2, like $2 US, as opposed to, you know, averaging 150 for an actual set of hand combs, is these aren't dangerous at all. I am super clumsy and forgetful, and I have injured myself so many times on my hand combs, so this is like, it doesn't matter where I leave this, it's not going to injure anybody or myself, so that's actually really helpful. So this is a lot better. You can probably still tell from the clumps of color. It's not super blended, because if it were, this, you might get like a little bit of a wash of the orange, but I think it's blended enough. So I'm gonna, this step is called stroking the beard. You want everything aligned, and now it is. So I'm gonna pull off one more time, and again it comes off easier the second time. So the more you reprocess it, the easier it is. It's not as painstaking every time. You might worry that a cheap plastic comb would break in this use, and if you're doing like a really crimpy wool, it might. This is just Shetland. It's not too crimpy. I haven't noticed any problems. But of course you could get a nicer comb anyway. So this is pretty decent. Still a few spots where it's like, eh. But that happens on hand combs too. So here you could diz it, which dizzing it is where you pull it through a little hole, like a buttonhole. I don't do that because it's hard on my wrists. I do it sometimes, but I'm not going to do it this time. You can also just draft it out a little so it's nicer. And then just sort of wind it into a little nest. There's another nest I made earlier, so you can see it can also be made to blend colors, kind of. I mean, so I actually only did one pass on this, but this is some white and some yellow. It's got a really interesting marled Yeah, should spin up well. So it's sort of multi-purpose. I'm kind of mangling it. You can use it to blend colors. You can use it to just get some really nice top. I did some tests on this, and I found that it was almost indistinguishable. Not quite. The palm combed was a little bit less refined than the hand comb. That could be down to just skill, because I've been using hand combs for a while, and I started trying this out like in the last couple weeks, and I've been busy, so but they make really nice like worsted yarn. So especially if you've been trying to get worsted yarn and you can't afford hand combs, this is much better than 3D printed hand combs. And I don't mean to knock 3D printed hand combs, because I do love those, but like, you don't have to deal with loose nail holes or anything like that, and you don't have to drop them on your foot and then have problems. So, and they're much cheaper too. And even in comparison to hand cards, this is still much cheaper. Of course, it won't get you a roll lag, but you know. So I have. I was also testing the time, the processing time for hand cards and palm cards, to see if they hold up, you know, if maybe the palm cards were just much slower. But no, it's about the same range. I processed the same amount of fiber on hand cards in 10 minutes and palm cards in 13 minutes, which I find acceptable deviation. So it's a little slower, but not bad. And that bit that I pulled off earlier, so this is the combing waste. So many cars. This is the combing waste. On hand cards, you'd actually have a lot more of this, because lots of longer fibers just get stuck in the tines. On palm cards, not so, because you're always pulling it off by hand, so it's easier to pull those good fibers off. But this is also, it's called waste, but it's not actually waste. You can totally still use it, you know, and you can reprocess it on hand cards if you had them, stuff like that. But even so, I'm still able to draft it into a uneven yarn, so certainly don't throw it away. Yeah, I hope this has been helpful, and I hope you can give fleece processing a try if you've been interested, but the price of the tools has held you back, because they are so expensive. But processing fleece is so fun. So enjoy.